Well, welcome, gentlemen, and thank you for joining Family Partnerships regularly scheduled podcast. For us, being a community-based care organization, it's about the children. It's about the family of the children that we are also working with. But what is oftentimes an underscore is how the community responds to our mission and to our calling to serve kids who have come into life with really adverse childhood experiences, and which are very unfortunate. And I always tell our audiences that the relationships we make together in working with these kids and bringing them a healing journey really is contingent upon how well we engage the larger community. When we met you all, it moved us so that my team came out and said, Phil, you just got to come and see these folks because they're all heart and they're all genuine and they're walking the walk about taking children into their home. And I'm like, oh my God, I mean, my heart like exploded. And then that's when I became to know you all a few years back, actually. But you have all been a part of the journey of foster care and adoption for many, many years. And in a moment, we're going to talk a lot about that. I've got a series of really important questions, I think, to me, but probably more so to our audience, about who you are and where you're coming from and why you do what you do. But first and foremost, an introduction is in order. And if I would, to my left here, ask, who are you and what's your position, title, and a little bit of that?
My name is Kevin Smith. I am the local president of a transport workers union group here in Merritt Island. I'm also an international rep taking care of the rest of the country with all of our air division contracts.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kevin.
I'm Dennis McDonough. I'm the Vice President of Local 525 for Transport Workers Union and a 36-year Cape worker at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. And I'm also the father of a foster parent and the grandfather of three adopted foster grandchildren.
I'm Dennis McDonough, former foster parent and adoptive parent here in Brevard County.
Wonderful. Well, thank you once again for being here. It was self-evident, not only from my eyewitness of you guys on site here in Brevard County, because we've been working the industry of foster care and adoptions for 25 plus years now. And I don't know if there's any entity out there that has stepped up as wonderfully and emphatically as you guys have. Tell me, what was the attraction? What was the drive? I mean, you're about the children, you're about community, and then the holidays just like caused an explosion of engagement. Where do we begin with that?
Well, came out to when I first started out at the Cape at the Space Center, and we saw this list of kids that weren't going to have Christmas. And, back in the day, back in the late 80s, early 90s, that was the place to be, was to work at the Space Center. And so we were really blessed to get jobs out there and have great working conditions. And we saw these lists and we're like, this can't be possible. How can this be happening in our community? What can we do? How can we get involved? And there were so many of us. We were a very tight-knit group. And so we just started putting people together, and each year just kept growing. We were able to adopt 15 kids, 60 kids, 70 kids. At one time, we were a big contract. We were able to adopt 80, 90 kids and just go out and buy presents. And when I started, I was 26. He was four. and we get people to donate and be a part of it. Oh, what can we do? Give some money and I'll shop for this kid. Well, we'd always have 10, 20, 30 kids to shop for. And he shopped with me for 20 years, from the time he's 4 to almost 25 years old, doing that, picking out the outfits for the kids off the wish list. And at the end of the day, man, and as you shared it with other people, your heart was full to know that you were able to do that. But each year it was never enough. And so we were trying to figure out how we can do this, and we started out with the other program that was there, and then we found our way to you guys. And I mean, you just go to bed at night with a full heart that you were a part of that. And we were able to share that with other people to be a part of that. And that's how we got started. And we just never gave up. This
You know,
35 years.
when we wrapped up this year's Christmas event, because of you all, it was a tremendous success. But I remember you and I wrapping up and having a little like powwow bye, this was great, and thank you so much. And your eyes lit up like, Phil, we're already thinking about next year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just amazing. I thought you would like put a sigh and say, "Oh, this was a tremendous lift," and it's like, no, you had a second wind in the moment of closure of this year's event, thinking next year, and I'm thinking, holy cow, this is a blessing from God, and I really wanted you to hear that from me because it's resonating me to this moment as I reflect on it. Let me ask you something. You gentlemen here. Because of you as individuals, and you're here because of the work that you do also. It's how we got connected. Tell me about your families, and they're behind the scenes with you, and maybe sometimes in the front of the scenes with you. What is that like? Business, family, community, and then these children always being continuously a focus of your vision.
For my family, big part of it is, my 3 children were adopted through foster care. They know the backstory that me and my dad did shopping for the kids for 20 years. That was my, month before the holidays every year was shopping for these kids. So once I got my boys, they now go with him and shop every year. So the holidays have become even more special for them because they know they're going with their pop to go Christmas shopping for other foster children.
We say, we're trying to heal one child at a time and change the trajectory of their future. And I often tell the staff that serve the children and the families, you're not changing a life, you're changing a generation of lives, right? And here you guys are echoing that by action from your heart to your giving. How far would you take this? I mean, you've got a lot of work to do. Irrespective of the industry of foster care and adoptions, how do you keep that drive going?
There's no choice. It's part of life. It's part of you've got to do it. We're one family. We were raised as a family. We work as a family. We support our community as a family, and we have to continue to just grow, to just continue to grow and look at how much more we can do. And how we've been blessed, and if you've truly been blessed in your life, and you can't offer blessings back out, then what do you have? But again, we watch you and your team and what they do, and that's the inspiration. That's the only inspiration we needed to get involved and do this. It's this. Go to bed with a full heart. And it's good. And I've said many times, you said a quote, and I say one all the time, and I tell people all that. I myself might not be able to change the world. He might not be able to change the world, but we can change the world for somebody who might be the person to change the world.
Yeah.
And that's what we support.
Yeah, that's beautiful. This whole notion that 25 years ago, the legislature mandated through statute that the government will not be doing foster care and adoption anymore. We need an external entity, private companies, to come in and be innovative. One of the greatest lines in statute even driven is, we want community engagement. I've been doing this for 40 years, but we've been privatized here in Florida for only 25 years. And the irony is, and I say this humbly and respectfully, I've never run into an entity that has given all to an effort of supporting our organization and this community's children. And I commend you on that. I mean, I think about these things quite often. I think communities need to hear that, because people often say, I'm not too sure what I can do. Follow your heart. You did. Your families did. Leadership did. I mean, this is really, it's like an angel from heaven. When we talk about this back at the old ranch, at Family Partnerships, we're talking about, man, who are those shining stars that help us do what we do and make the kind of impact that we might not have otherwise been blessed to do? I mean, you've accelerated it, and we thank you for that. Tell me more about your work entity and how much you represent as a business community, because you're really very large, and I think people need to know how big you guys are.
The size of the TW nationally is about 160,000, and those are spread between 100 plus locals throughout the country. Um, and we have our hands on just about every kind of craft and trade that you could possibly think of. Most of it is transit driven. That's why we have the Transport Workers Union label. But specific to Local 525 here, we're mostly driven by the Space Center. But we've fell under the leadership of TW simply for the fact that back in the day in Brevard County, we were all underneath Pan Am World Services at the Space Center.
Right.
Pan Am World Services was the first contractor at the Space Center. That's what brought TW in. So we don't necessarily fit the typical transit local, but we were a part of that. So we have a rich history in the area. Matter of fact, TW Local 525 was the first union in Brevard County at the Space Center back in the 1950s. So I grew up there. As a kid, I grew up watching the Space Center, and we have a touch throughout the country now. It's not the biggest of all the international unions, but it is quite sizable, and we pack a punch for sure. Especially local here, we pack a pretty big punch, and we do our best.
It's very observable to me is, you guys are gentlemen of humility. I mean, you don't boast about who you are, what you represent, and you're major players in probably a very competitive industry. And here we're just talking about kids, right?
Yeah.
Can we go back in time? I mean, I'd love to hear about where was the inception, and that moment when you thought about kids in the system. Do you remember that? I mean, that dates back quite a way. So
In the beginning, when we first saw the angel trees, and like we talked about it, kids without Christmas. If somebody didn't step up, kids were going to be without Christmas. I came from a very traditional family, 5 kids, and we didn't have a lot, but we had Christmas every year, and I couldn't imagine what Christmas wouldn't be like. Big Italian Irish families, and I come out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania as a kid. I've been here almost my whole life, but the Christmas was it. It was when the families all gathered, and it was this big part. To think that kids wouldn't have a Christmas, and so one of the things that happened with Dennis and I, and his mom used to get mad. And she'd, oh, you got to do this, you got to do this. And we were like, he would say, Mom, it's Christmas every day in our house. And so we don't need one day a year. It's Christmas every day for us. And that's been our theory for what, 35 years, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Christmas wasn't for us. For 35 years, Christmas hasn't been about us. It was Christmas every day for us. And so that's what started it for us. And we were able to go out there and gather a couple people and a few dollars. And then and Kevin back in the day before he was the president of the local and everything, he was one of those guys that was hauling the bicycles and helped putting them together and stuff like that. And as he climbed up in the leadership, he took me with him. We'll let that go at that. But and he got in those positions, and we realized that we could do so much more. The more of us there was, the bigger the army, the stronger the army, and then we could reach out to more and more people. And we're not done.
yeah,
And I was raised in it.
yeah.
4 years old, we started shopping for kids every year for, children that are in foster care that may not have a Christmas. So every year at Christmas, I was thinking about children that were in the system.
It was amazing, Phil. One day I get the call, Dad, I'm going to foster some kids. Like, where'd that come from? And he's like, well, what do you think? That was never the intention. It just came out of that. And then we've met so many foster parents, and then so many parents that adopted kids through your program. And I'll tell you one thing that inspired us really big was when Brevard Family Partnership went to family partnership and went from 1 to 4 counties, and you continued to do it. That inspired us that, hey, all right, Now they're spread thin.
Yeah.
Now they have 4 counties. So we got to step up our game too. And then, like I said, that's when Kevin got involved. And Kevin's a power player, man. He makes stuff happen for us. That's where I go.
So the journey, fostering and adopting, quite frankly, I often share this with folks and even prospective foster and adoptive families who come to us. It's not for everybody, and that's
Mm-hmm.
okay, right? It's okay. But there is a place for anybody to support, as we can see. So what is it and what has it been about that journey that makes it doable when you are doubtful that maybe I can or can't do this? What makes it doable? What are the resources, the programs, or anything? Relationships?
It's scary going into it in the beginning
Mm.
for anyone because you don't know what to expect. Family Partnership had an amazing training class when we first went in before you get your license. The licensing specialist was amazing with information. The resources that you guys provide for foster families is incredible. Our children had, mental health professionals to help them through stressful times, the medical care they received. There's an amazing support group. Um, I eventually became a foster parent mentor where I would mentor any new foster families for 6 months. So we would do bi weekly, monthly check ins with them, go check on their house, see if they need anything, direct them to who to call. There was a lot of times foster parents wouldn't know the organization, wouldn't know who to call for a medical issue or who to call with just a general question. So, as a mentor, you're able to help them, direct them to who they need to speak with. Nope, that's your licensing specialist, or that's going to be the guardian ad litem. I took that role pretty serious because I think that's important. I think a lot of foster families will start and then kind of back away because they don't know what the resources are.
Right.
And I've told plenty of people it's not for everyone being a foster parent. You know, I've had a lot of people tell me, "Oh, I wish I could help, but there's no way I could foster." I'm like, "You don't have to foster. You could go volunteer somewhere. When your kids grow out of their clothes, you can donate those clothes because children come into foster care with a plastic bag of 2 outfits. We've been in that same position, and thankfully, you know, the organization had the secondhand closets that we could go to and get clothes for a foster child that comes in, 11 o'clock on a Monday night. And these foster parents come together and really help each other. We had a very tight knit group of foster parents that, we would message each other. Hey, I just had a 5-year-old girl come in that doesn't have any clothes, and by the next morning, you'd have 6 families willing to bring them to you.
Yeah. So what would you say to people who are listening to this? I don't know if we can do that. How would you respond to that?
I've told people, it's not for everyone, but you don't know unless you really look into it. Let's talk. I can tell you about my experience with it. You can decide from there. Family Partnership also has classes where they speak about it. That was what I first did. I went and sat in a class about foster care and adoption and the differences, and that's what sold me. They have videos that play and everything, and I just knew that it was for me then.
I think today, and tell me if you see it otherwise, but I think today, relative to even 20, 30 years ago, I remember the kind of painted picture that was of foster care, foster parents, and foster children. I find myself being a myth buster when talking to the community. What are some of the myths? And tell me the reality of what you've experienced. What are some of the myths about describing who foster care kids are and why foster parents do it? And what is your experience about that?
The myths, it's not what you see in the movies. It's not just a kid moving into a house that has a bunch of other kids and there's no family involvement. It's so much more entailed. The children come in, a caseworker comes with them, will stay until they're comfortable. You have the child's assigned a guardian ad litem. They can have therapists if they need it, a case manager who's constantly working. You get in touch with the biological parents. One thing that the myths or the movies don't really show is how much the foster parents are working with the biological parents.
Yes.
The ultimate goal is to reunite the children with their families. And I think that's one of the myths of foster care. They don't ever show that side of it. You're working with a lot of people. You're working with a big support system, and you're there trying to help the children and their parents.
Speaking about support systems, let's talk and feel, gentlemen, jump in on that, because I can imagine that what is very apparent to you and your core family is the extended family and friends and colleagues that are there to support you. It makes the world a much larger place and not like you're in a silo. So how do you see that role?
Well, let me tell you a little something about it, because you talk about adopting, fostering, or adopting a kid, and how you're going to change that kid's life. Let's go the other way. Let's talk about how those kids change your life.
Amen. Yes,
Okay.
please do.
Okay, you talk about I'm Pop, grandfather. You talk about these kids I've taught to fish, to snorkel. They know how to mow the grass with a zero turn lawnmower. I've taught they're 9 years old. I've taught them how to drive in the backyard.
Right.
They have aunts and uncles and in-laws and mother-in-laws and all this stuff that they've changed their lives. So you have the Christmas comes over and all the family comes over at Christmas time, and these kids, they're part of that person's life, So you have a kid. Your sister now has a niece or nephew, that's part of that. Your entire family has been affected by you fostering and or adopting that kid. So he it was the greatest thing in the world. Every time, hey Dad, I got 2 new kids come over here, man. I'm driving over. I can't, it was unbelievable what him fostering kids did for my entire family. My mother, my sister, my brothers, all my friends.
Yeah.
It affected that all outside, and then they're all, what do you need?
Yeah.
What do you need?
Dennis, you're a colleague and you're a friend. Do you have any idea what your support of them probably means, whether we speak of it or not?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with a family who was involved with kids, and I was part of this program before it was Family Partnerships, back when it was the original VART. Well, no, it was the other name.
Community-based care provider.
Yeah.
It's origin.
So
yeah.
we started back then. We were helping
Yeah.
families out back then. But I grew up with a family who helped children, and I didn't get as heavily involved until Dennis came to me and said, "Listen, there's some challenges this group needs," and it was an immediate yes. What are we going to do? And I think you said this earlier. Before the end of our breakfast with Santa, we were already huddling up on the side, talking about where are we going to go next year and how do we grow it? How do we get more people involved? And we're chatting today about how do we grow our support. But it's easy when it's children. I don't get involved with a lot of organizations outside of children, but when it comes to that, the answer is always yes. It's an easy yes. And it's an easy yes for our organization, even though we are very big and we stretch throughout the United States. The support is a phone call away, and we never get denied. And we're going to continue to support this mission for as long as we possibly can. I know until I'm no longer around, but it's exciting to know that this is growing and we're doing something amazing.
It's funny you talk about that. And it's funny, we're cohorts in life about age-wise and stuff. And I think about when you're no longer around, when you guys do things like this, you defer my retirement. I used to think about when I was going to retire, I'm thinking, I don't think I'm retiring. If folks like this keep coming to the table and share this mission with us, how could I stop my championing of an organization that provides those opportunities? It's really quite humbling. I'm so grateful. Words of wisdom for people who are listening to this about, hey, if fostering and adopting is not for them, what else can they do? Because they represent other industries that may not even have their eyes open yet.
Get involved. Get involved. Get hold of Family Partnership. get hold of Krista Jones. She's the best. I love that girl.
Yeah.
And just get involved. Get involved in Transport Workers Union, Local 525, and partner up with us. We're always looking to partner up. Every year we're going to make this bigger. We're going to keep doing it and keep doing it, and we're going to find a generation to replace us older guys, as you'll look for your replacement one day too. But the generations are growing up, and let's just keep going.
You can always help. You can always donate. You can volunteer.
Yes.
These children always need something. Link up with the foster family. See what you can do to help them.
Yeah.
You never know until you talk to them.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, family partnership, make the phone call, get involved, and just say, what can I do? What can I do? If you don't know what you can do, just ask. There's plenty. Get involved.
Yeah. I'm looking at 3 gentlemen who would probably say, no way, I'm not a social worker. You're social workers. You've been ordained, right? I mean, it's ironic that, and I've studied this for academically, professionally for a long, long time and everything. And it's like, quite frankly, everyone's talking about how are we making generational change in society? And God knows you look around the world today and there's a lot of conflict. But here we are back at home talking about the communities right here in our communities and the fact that healthy communities will raise healthier families. You guys are in this chemistry lab with us, creating agents of change, right? Imagine this petri dish of being affected by layers and layers of society, family, just dedicated hearts. I mean, this is really something that people need to hear and see when you think what's going on in the world. This is what's going on in the world. It's good.
I think you hit something right there. I don't remember the first couple of times that we did the breakfast with Santa, but this last time I paid attention. I stood in the back of the room and I watched that all of our volunteers that came from our organization, they all brought their kids. I brought my daughter. The entire line of serving for breakfast with Santa was done by kids, 15, 16, if not younger. And our staff brought all their children. And I would urge you, if you're sitting there listening to this, that when you go out and volunteer, don't just go by yourself. Take that young person with you, develop that person just like you got developed. I was experiencing this because my father was a giver. He's been, he's passed now, but he's got ball fields named after him in Merritt Island here because he gave to children. So I knew how to do that. And I didn't become even more involved until these 2 amazing guys got involved. And now they picked me and brought me along, and I'm more excited than ever. And I'm looking forward. We've got about 9 months to go, and I'm ready to put another one together because it's so good.
And you mentioned generational change, and like Kevin said, so many of the volunteers bring their children to these events, and they get to see it firsthand. My 3 boys were my 8th, 9th, and 13th placements of the 17 children that I fostered. So they've been foster brothers to new kids coming in, even after they were adopted. So they've been what we call, little foster parents. Yeah. They've gone shopping with him for the Christmas stuff. They go to breakfast with Santa. All 3 of them were helping serve food to the foster children this year. So when you speak about generational change, my middle child constantly talks about after he graduates college and has his career going, he's going to foster.
We stood back, Phil, and to add on to what he just said, Brian and I stood back and we looked over there and said, this is the first year we've been doing this, and the entire serving line was kids, and 3 of the kids out of the family partnership program. That's how you change the world.
So that's what you get when you engage the community and it responds. This is really a beautiful profile of the purpose of community-based care.
Join us at Family Partnership's annual golf tournament. This event is April 17th at Eagle Creek in Lake Nona. Enjoy raffles, win trophies, and show your support for the children and families we serve while enjoying a day of golf on a fantastic course. For more information, visit our website at fpocf.org. Now back to the program.
Well, let's continue on, because this conversation, I think, is resonating with so much of us. I can only imagine, to those who are listening and watching. We kind of segued into the journey that we go with these children that are coming into care, and something that you all were describing really resonates with me as a buzz in the industry for quite some time now, for over a decade, about the focus has to be on children who are coming into care, which is not normal, and what you can do as a family and as a community to create normalcy while the system in of itself works with the parents and the courts are working with the families and the caseworker and the guardians, like we were talking about. Let's talk about, what is it that you wish to impart to these children as they pass through your home and to your extended family and support group?
For our family, while being foster parents, our biggest thing was the children. Yes, we work very closely with the children's parents, their biological parents, but at the same time, they have a case manager that helps them. And there's a guardian ad litem, and there's a parenting plan, and they have a lot of resources. Our goal is to make the children feel safe in the home, feel loved, and feel like they're part of the family. I've never wanted a child in my home to feel like they're a foster child. I want them to feel like they're a member of our family. I have been fortunate to have an amazing family that every time a child came into my home, they were right there to meet them, take them shopping, get them the clothes that they liked. We have a very large group of friends that we have lots of events and parties and dinners. So they're there. They're playing with the other kids. They're part of the friend group. So that's our biggest thing, is to make the children feel like they're part of the family. And, we keep it structured. They learn that in our home we have dinner at a certain time. And then after dinner, we take the dogs for a walk. It's every day. We do all these things. They learn structure. A lot of the kids come in and they'll see my kids, doing their certain chore. So then they want their own chore. So then they help out. I've also made it a big point that, some biological families don't work well with the foster families, and that's okay. They work directly with their case manager. We've been fortunate. We've had a lot of parents that do want to stay close, so we would have them over for dinner. Sometimes they would do visits at the house, or we would meet up at a Sky Zone or the zoo or something for their visit, and the parents would ask us to stay. You want to stop and hang out with us while we do our visit? I thought it was very important to have a bond between them. Because of that, out of the 17 that I fostered, minus the 3 that I adopted, I'm still in contact with a lot of the families. I still talk to the first 2 placements that I had that were with me in 2016, wow. I'm sorry. Their mom still sends me pictures of them, and they still talk about our house. Amazing. Yeah, they talk about the way we did things, and she's implemented those things into their life. It's hard when I leave, and I always when I was a foster parent mentor, I used to always tell them, it is hard. You are going to fall in love with these kids, and when they leave and they go back home, which is what your ultimate goal is, if your heart isn't broken, then you're not doing it right.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. I think about, I open this up with, how do you create a normal, normalcy in an abnormal experience, right? Children shouldn't have to come into foster care if the world was perfect, right? But you do. You step in and do that. And I think when you're effective, it's simply because you've acquired something that is rather unique to the human condition, that's empathy. And I think about how you raised him, how you support him, and how the kids see that relationship empathically. Tell me about your own children, your own kids, this experience. What was the impact on them?
They love being part of it. Seeing the children that come into care, they know what it's like. Yeah. They know what these children have gone through. They see what their pop does to help support them. They saw what we did to help foster them. My middle child says that he wants to be a foster parent once he gets his career going. He's 12. But he's decided, he talks about it all the time. My oldest son talks about, well, then I guess I'm going to be a foster uncle.
That's sweet.
They see and they love being a part of it, and they love helping. They ask all the time when we're going to see some of the foster kids that we had. One in particular was adopted and lives out of town. Well, when he comes to town, we all get together and hang out.
Yeah. So Papa is Papa to many, huh?
Yes, yes. You talk about that how you bring them in and adapt and all that, and you can just forget about the foster or the adopted and just take it away.
Yeah.
I treat those kids just like I treated him, and we have our little secrets too. They come over here and Dad this, Dad that, and I go, they got scolded for something from Dad for something they did, and I go, hey, it was just as bad. He was talking to me today about the kid's room, about whether or not the room was clean. Oh my God, try to get the kid to pick up the room and everything. I'm about to do this and do that. I go, boy, don't I remember that? That apple didn't fall far from the tree. But at the same time, you bring them in, you give them all this love, you give them discipline, structure. Just take the foster adopted off.
Yeah, you give them normalcy.
Normalcy.
Like I said, we had a large group of friends, and we would show up to a party with a different group of kids than we had the week before. But it was never an introduction of these are our new foster children. It was, this is, and just list them by name. And no one in our community, our circle, ever treated any of the children like they were foster children. They were part of our family.
Our kids. Our kids.
Gentlemen, I gotta tell you that you've now expanded my repertoire as a leader in this industry, and that, as I used to say, to staff and to people like you, you're changing the generation of children. You know what you're also changing? It just dawned on me. I mean, sometimes it's divine when I have people who are just so giving. You're changing generations of community. Foster care, like many other social woes, are things that are oftentimes not spoken of. It's sort of that little dark cloud that society puts aside. You're bringing it to light. You're bringing it into the sunlight, and I commend you on that. And I'm humbled by that because though this is my career and my mission, you're right there with us. Family Partnership really is grateful for you guys as gentlemen, as fathers and grandfathers, as friends and colleagues, that you give so unselfishly. It's just amazing.
I never saw it as changing a generation or changing the lives of all these children. And when I was mentoring new foster families, you're just focusing on changing one life at a time.
Yeah.
You have a child come in and you're just changing that one life.
Yeah.
I told you, Phil, I raised a son to raise a son, not thinking he was going to be a foster parent, an adopted parent, and all that sort of stuff. I mean, I did rescue dogs his whole life, so what was he going to do but one up me?
Yeah.
I'll do kids. but it wasn't for that purpose. And then the other part is a lot of people say, well, you've changed so many lives, and your family, his mother and me, have been part of changing these kids' lives. And I go, you're missing the whole thing. My life has been changed. Kevin, one of my best friends I've known for 36 years, his life's been changed because I can share my 3 grandsons and their experiences and stories with him. So just a guy I work with, we're friends and we're work partners. We've been together for 36 years. But those kids that he fostered and adopted and changed my life, got to change a piece of his life, and we've been able to share that with everybody we meet and talk to. So it's a lot more than just us trying to change the lives of other people. We want to change lives.
Oh,
we want.
That was never your agenda. But my point is, you each are the proverbial pebble that hits the water, and you have no idea the impact. And all I'm saying is, I'm grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if our listeners want to know what is the journey in fostering children and maybe even adopting them, be that pebble.
Yes.
and join us like Local 525. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.